Okay, welcome to our first video for our tennis class for 2020 fall semester. First of all, I'm so pleased that so many people signed up for class considering everybody knew we were going to be online. Hopefully, we were going to try to get onto the course sometime this semester, but right now, really don't know. So, housekeeping first, which means taking care of all the details before we go. I've been sending out numerous emails and instructing everybody to please go and look under the ICRs, the instructor course requirements for class. So be sure you do that. Do that as soon as possible. I hope that you already did it so you come in with some knowledge for the class. And explains how we're going to do each class, what's going to happen, what's expected of you. All these things I would be doing the first week of school. Now technically, our class would be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12:30 to 1:50 with a possibility of staying over at 1:50 because we have tennis on campus at 2 o'clock, which is our competitive group of tennis players. But we won't be having that because, of course, our courts are closed. But the cool thing is I've made arrangements with Richland Tennis Center and Hurst Tennis Center to be able to have reserved courts for you. And if you'll notice in there, I've hinted at this, and if you'll read the announcements for class, you'll see that I have divided the class up into groups. Now remember, I don't know any of you, a lot of you do know each other, but a great many of you signed up without knowing somebody in class. So the people I knew that knew each other, I put them together in one group, and the people that I didn't know whether you knew each other, although there were a couple people with same last names, I tried to put you in the same group. Now the only reason why you're in those groups is so that you may be able to go to Richland Tennis Center on the days that those courts are reserved. Now remember, this is not mandatory. If you cannot make those times, there's nothing counts against you. It's just that you know that you're always insured of having a place to go to play. For instance, Group A, when you find your name under Group A means that that group of people will be able to go to Richland Tennis Center on Tuesdays from 12:30 to 2 and play free. They're not going to charge you. You have to do all of the protocol that they tell you. You have to wear a mask in the clubhouse. When you come into the clubhouse, then you are going to sign in. They'll ask your name, that you're part of TCC. I'll have a list. They'll give you a brand new can of tennis balls, which are for you to keep, to use, to play. And then they'll instruct you and tell you which two courts that you're playing on. There'll be two courts next to each other. 4 people to a court, 4 people to a court. That's why the group has 8 people in it. And then we are lucky enough to have 2 of the individuals that took the tennis class that are also members of Tennis on Campus. They work at Richland Tennis Center. So they're going to come by and may be able to give you tips, or you can ask them questions or things of that sort. Since it's an online class, we as instructors don't get to be present outside of the facility. So I can't just drop by and say, hey, that looks good. So that's why I'm making these videos, and that's why I'm having the guys come from Richland Tennis Center, Peter and Brent, just to give you some tips or ask if you want. But be sure you know all the rules of the tennis center. And I've posted those on the announcements of things you have to do with protocol. Observe all those rules, social distancing, no more than 4 on a court, you can't mess around, things like that, because they're doing that for us to be able to do that. Now on Thursdays, if you're a part of Group B, then those people that are listed in Group B, Thursdays is their day to use those courts. So you're assured of at least one day a week that you have those courts reserved. Now, Hurst Tennis Center, oh, by the way, I also put down what the address was of Richland Tennis Center, which is behind Richland High School, in case some of you don't know where it's at. This also gives you a chance to meet other people in class. Some of you, like I said, you already know people in class, but this gives you a chance to meet other people. So that if you want to set up times and places, otherwise, that you want to play with this new person you've met or a friend or a family member to practice, then that just works out even better. This just gives you a chance to see other people that are kind of starting off at your level. Hurst Tennis Center, which I gave you the address of that, which is on Mary Drive in Hurst, they have their courts set aside for us, courts 9 and courts 10. They're over by themselves on the back side of the tennis center. Those are reserved for us Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Monday through Friday from 1 to 5. Those courts are open from 1 to 5. So there's no fee, no charge, nothing. So some of you guys that may have taken a job, or some of you that maybe have a different schedule, then what you need to make sure is that you come during a time that's good for you to come. Again, since we don't have actual participation and mandatory attendance to meet at those times, this is just an option for you to get to put into everything online that I'm showing you in a practical form. Then I've also set a list of different places: Bedford Boys Ranch, Richville Park, Northville Park, Keller High School, and Birdville High School. I've sent the addresses for all 5 of those areas, that all those courts are open, and they're doing what's called a first come, first serve. So if you show up there at 6:30 at night and there's nobody on a court and you have a friend to play with, poof, you get to play on the court. Those kind of things, you can't reserve those. But those are all free, and they may work out on the weekends for you or something of that sort. Now remember, I'm not counting for or against if you get to play. I'm just giving you an avenue to practice all this with. So each week when I have a video, we'll make our videos on Monday. We'll load them on Monday night, Monday afternoon, Monday evening, so that they'll be able to preview for the whole week. This is what starts for next week. This is our video for next week. So this is what I want you to be doing for next week. Have the ICRs read so that you know everything about the ICRs. So if you have a question on ICRs and grading and what's expected of you, or what's going to comprise the whole class, then you need to email me and let me know. My email is set up there, which most of you guys already know because you've already emailed me, and I've already sent you emails through WebAdvisor. So be sure you access that. It would be wonderful if you had a racket. Some of you have indicated that you can borrow rackets and you have rackets, so it would be nice if you had a racket. That would make it good. If you do not have a racket and there's no way you can get one, short of buying one, then be sure you contact me and let me know. I'm going to be having the balls available on that first Tuesday, which is, I believe, the 28th. I hope I'm not off on that date. I think the 27th when we start school, and I'm totally off now. The 24th is when the college starts classes. We technically would be starting on Tuesday, which would be the 25th. So I will have the balls at Richland Tennis Center by Monday afternoon, Monday evening. So when you come on Tuesday, you will be able to pick up your balls. If you're Group B and you come on Thursday, you'll be able to pick up your balls then. But I need to know about the rackets. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about physical components. We're going to talk about physical fitness assessment. We're going to talk about warm-up, the grip, the racket itself, balls, and typical court. And attached to your first week's assignment is some fitness information and tips on the forehand. The rest of the stuff I will always have on file. I will always have on file 2 professional matches, and I will always have links through USTA, which stands for United States Tennis Association. And those links will tell you a little bit about history, a little bit about tennis itself, the formation of tennis, and then I'll try to have a link that includes what we're talking on. So the first week will be a link on forehand, which I will talk about the grip and forehand. The second week of classes, which will start the 30th through that next week, then that will give you tips on forehands and backhands for ground strokes. Then the next week, it just goes like that. Each week we add to it. You'll want to know about the lines on the court. You can see that we are inside right now, and this is not a typical setup on lines. Next week, so a whole nother week after that, we will be outside on the tennis courts, and we'll be filming there, and you'll be able to see the lines to correspond with the lines I'm going to send you as an attachment. So today is to talk about fitness assessment, a warm-up drills, and a little bit about the grip and a little bit about the forehand, which has to do with ready position and footwork. I know that's a lot of things, but I think if you finish up and you watch all the video every time you come, anytime you want to watch it, you can watch it. I mean, you've got 7 full days to watch the video, to read the attachments, to play on your own, to do supplemental stuff. Any time of day, you have to do that. And the only thing that I'm asking from you that I need for you to turn in so I know you're doing this is after every week by Sunday at midnight, I need 3 summarizations that have to do with 3 good ones. You can have more than 3, but at least 3 good ones. 3 things that you're going to write down that tells me about that week. What you learned from that week, what you learned about the forehand, what you practiced, what things happened. Any 3 big summarizations. Don't just make something up. Think about something that goes. And like right now, you already could write one that said, shoot, I think fitness has a lot to do with playing tennis or any other activity. So we're going to start with a warm-up. And I like to do warm-ups using your racket, because I think it reinforces what's going on with your racket. So we're going to talk about the racket first and make sure we're warming up with the right grip on the racket and go from there. This is a tennis racket. There are a gajillion different tennis rackets out there. in price, in size, in weight, in grips, everything you can imagine, different types of stringing, everything. This just happens to be the type of racket I like to play with. I've played with a Head brand racket forever. It just seems to fit me. It's more of an oval shape than a round shape. I like the throat on it, and the grip always kind of fits me as we go on it, so I do enjoy having this type of racket. And you can see, we'll just talk about the parts of it right off the bat. We'll start at the end and go up. This is called the end or the butt of the racket. And you'll notice mine has a little insignia on it. If it was a Wilson or racket, it would have an M on it, and then if you turned it over to have a W. Mine has this kind of swish thing with a dot in it. So this is usually down, check mark, and usually this is a hump, which is up. So we use this, which oddly enough is funny, we use this so that when we get ready to decide who's going to serve, it's like a coin toss. Did I say coin toss? It's a coin toss, not a coin toss. You know what I'm trying to say. It's like a coin, but you toss it. That's what this is used for. So if I'm playing Shane, who's the one videotaping for me, by the way, if I'm playing Shane, I say to Shane, okay, you want up or down. Now, I always spin my racket in my hand. A lot of people spin their rackets and they fall on the ground, but I don't like to do that with my racket. So I spin it in my hand. I say, okay, Shane, do you want up or do you want down? And Shane says, I want the winning one. But he says up, so I'm going to spin the racket like this, and I'm going to say, tell me when to stop spinning. That way he knows I'm not cheating. And he says, now, and then I'm going to turn it around and I go, oh, darn, it's up. So then what happens, and this is going to be a test question later, he has his choice of whether he wants to serve first, whether he wants to pick the side he wants to play on first, whether he wants to receive first, or he can pick the choice that you really don't want to pick, which is called defer. And defer means you can't make a choice, and we'll talk about that later under strategy. But this right here is how you figure out who serves or who receives first. So that's the butt or the end of the racket. Then you come into the grip, and you see that I've got an over grip. It's unfortunately dirty. I need to change it, and it's pink, and it helps keep you if you have sweaty hands. Or if my racket is too small, the grip, I can put overwrap on it, and it'll help make it a little bit thicker. And also, too, there's different types of overwrap. There's things that are stickier, there's things that are spongier, there's all kinds of stuff, but you definitely will want something that you can re-grip when you need to. The throat of the racket, that's what this little space is in here, the throat of the racket. And this is the edge of the racket all the way around it, the rim or the edge. And then, of course, and here's where the strings are, and this is called the face of your racket. And sometimes you'll have somebody says, okay, the sweet spot, which means the spot in the middle, and usually that's where your strings are worn, that spot in the middle, which is your sweet spot. If you hit in the sweet spot, then your ball is more likely to go where it's supposed to go. If you hit off to the edge, it's like anything else, it deflects and doesn't go. If you hit it too high, too low, or on the edges. The joke usually is, I paid for my whole racket so I can use any part of it. That's a joke. Because it will deflect and go off. Now, a lot of times we'll say your racket face is too open. So that means it's too open-faced. I'm turning it too much to the sky. And think about this. If I do that and the ball hits it or I hit the ball, it's going to go really high, which would make it go maybe too long. If my racket face is closed, I turn it down, then probably it will go into the ground. It won't go over the net. So knowing how the face of your racket works makes a big difference. So it's kind of like a little short quiz will be on your racket at one time. Different parts of your racket, why they're important. You can see right here I've got what's called a dampener, or it's a kind of a vibration thing. Sometimes the rackets will vibrate in your hand. They won't be a solid hit. Could be doing with the strings. So I have a damper on mine. There's all kinds. You can get all kinds of little details. Sometimes you don't even need them. Sometimes the rackets come with them, and the dampers go across parallel to the strings on there. So all kinds of different things, but I wouldn't worry about those until you got to where you play a little bit more and you feel like your equipment needs to be a little bit better equipment. The biggest thing you want to think about is the grip of your racket. That's the biggest thing you want to think about. Your racket has 8 edges, 4 flat sides, and then 4 indentations on the side. So there's actually 8 sections in your racket. So that has to do with your grip. So you take your hand like this in a V, put all your fingers together, your thumb on one side, like you're going to shake hands with someone. You put the heel of your hand up against the butt or the heel of the racket. So looking at it like this, this is how I would go. And then the V of my hand would wrap around the grip of my racket. Okay? I don't want too loose of a grip, so it's wiggly wobbly. Then I don't want so tense of a grip on there. I want enough of a grip that's not going to come out of my hands, but not so stiff that then my arm becomes rigid and it's too hard to swing with it. So again, in between loosey-goosey and fighting it all the time. That's what you want, a loose grip. And you'll notice a lot of times, like when I first started talking, I'll do this with my racket a lot. What a lot of people will do that they'll have loose grips with their racket, and it keeps them from tensing up. I will tell you I'm not a twirler, so I don't advocate twirling your racket in between because you're ADD or something. And the reason why is because it takes just that much more time to get your grip ready. So if I'm already in ready position with my grip, and I'm not twirling my racket, more than likely, again, this is my opinion, that I will be with the correct grip. So the first grip we're going to talk about is the handshake grip, which I just said looks like this, called the handshake grip. That's how I'm going to hold on to my racket. Okay? So in warm-up, which we're going to start now, you have your choice from warming up from your toes to your head or your head to your toes. I'm going to back up a little bit just so that you can see everything's going on. I like coming from my head down. But you always want to be warmed up before you play. This is just a fitness component. So saying that, I want everybody to try to do a little minor fitness test before they start the class, meaning before you start working out on a regular basis. I want you to see how flexible you are. I want you to see how strong you are. I want you to see how much endurance you have, and I want to see how much cardiovascular you have. Now, having said that, flexibility means your range of motion. How flexible are you, okay? So I'm going to show you one to do with your racket, okay? So here I am, my feet are flexed. I can flex them up against anything, but I want your feet flexed. And I want you to have your racket with you, okay? So I've got my grip, which just reinforces that. I'm going to stick my racket in my hand, and I'm going to put it between my legs, and I'm going to stretch. I'm going to see how far that I can stretch with my racket in my hand with the right grip, just like this. I'm going to see how far I can stretch, okay? So I see to me the riding on my racket right here is kind of on that grip. That's how far I can stretch today, right now. Inhale, exhale. I can do like this. Inhale, exhale, reach up and over and stretch. And I see, oh, I got a little bit further that time, so I'm going to take the better one, okay? So this is how far I can stretch right here on my racket, okay? So I can do this whole racket's length just to here. So I want you to take that, I want you to write that down so you know that that was about how far you stretched all the way to on your racket. And then I want you to take it at midterm, and then we're going to take it again at finals. Now this is for you. You write it down. You can take a picture of it, show it to me. You can send it in the numbers. I don't care. But I need to know how far you stretch so we can compare that. That's your first test. The second test will be on endurance. And endurance is how strong you are in a certain amount of time, how long you can last. That's what endurance means. And everything about tennis is how long can I last in the point, how long can I last in the match, how long can I last in the set. All that puts in there together. The person that can last the longest is usually one of the people that winds up winning because they have more endurance. You can do the old-fashioned where you do the crunches, the sit-ups, fold your arms across your chest, have somebody hold your feet, or hook them under the couch or something. And how many sit-ups can you do, crunches can you do in 30 seconds? That's what you're going to look at. Or if you can't do crunches and you want to do reverse crunches, how many times can you bring your knees to yourself? I would go with any type of crunches that you could do here because I think that you're going to be better off doing them. And they don't look like this. You want to try to come all the way up. I don't have my hold of my feet. You want to come all the way up to where you clear the small of your back, and then when you come down, you want at least your shoulder blades to touch. So that's how many crunches or sit-ups that I can do in 30 seconds. My strength test is going to be how many push-ups I can do in 30 seconds. Now I can choose to do half push-ups, which this is not a half push-up. I'm showing you what not to do. Don't do this one. I don't like that one. Don't do this one that looks like the snake. Don't do that one. Do a half push-up. We used to call these girl push-ups, but we don't call that anymore. We want to call them half push-ups. And half push-ups which occur as one unit. So I go down as one unit, I come up as one unit. I go down as one unit, I come up as one unit. Now I can do full push-ups, down, up, down, up, down. But this is not a full push-up. And this is not a full push-up. So I'd rather have quality over quantity. So now you have flexibility, which is reaching with your racket. You have crunches, which is for endurance.